either one of these any good?
Wow, this is a good movie!
It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, the director from yesterday doesn't think so.
It stinks.
You sorry? You waste our film.
It's so bad!
Are we on? Is this thing on? Is it working? It is working. Welcome back. So sorry we missed it last week. We hadn't planned on that, but equipment was not our friend last week. Welcome. This is the Screening Room Podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're from madwolf.com. Yeah, we've had some a totally brand new console here in the studio where we record this, and it's very nice. Parts of it look like the Starship Enterprise in here. But it's been a little buggy. There's been some things to work out, and we got in here to record last week, and just nothing, no microphones at all. Nothing was working, so we had to punt. And really, the last couple of weeks, we haven't been able to get the Schlocketeer on the line either. But we did this week,
That's
so
right.
We're feeling good. It's all back to normal, and perfect timing too, because we've got at least one big blockbuster to talk about, and of course, we got to preview the Oscars.
That's
It's
right.
coming up soon. So back just in time. So speaking of that big blockbuster, let's check it out. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Freeman while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Got to be Dune Part 2.
I see possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through. My allegiance is to you. Do you believe me?
This is a form of power that our world has not yet seen. The ultimate power.
I want you to know I will love you as long as I breathe.
You will never lose me as long as you stay who you are.
Consider what you're about to do, Paul Atreides.
Silence!
This prophecy is how they enslave us! You are not prepared for what is to come.
I think we should just fess up right now. We are two of the very few people who did not particularly care for Dune Part 1. Not that we hated it or anything, but we just thought it didn't feel like a standalone film.
Yeah, we did. We weren't fans of the storytelling, although we did appreciate the vision.
Oh, yeah, it was gorgeous.
The look of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're big fans of Denis Villeneuve. Did I get that right?
I think you did,
yeah, it looked great. The world building was fantastic, as it is in Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the storytelling, I think we both thought the storytelling in Part 1 just didn't work for us.
It was
And,
all exposition. It was no action.
Right.
And when it ended, you didn't feel like you'd seen a film.
And
you
I
felt
didn't-
like you saw a preamble.
I really
to a
didn't
film.
think any of the stakes that we were supposed to get invested in were earned to me.
Right.
And of course, we didn't read the book, and
No.
we're not longtime
Books.
fans of
Yeah.
the books. But it didn't really work. But happily, much better this time.
Oh,
We
really
really
enjoyed, yeah.
enjoyed Part 2. I think this is going to satisfy both just the casual fans and the longtime fans of the book, because this was really ups the ante in storytelling while keeping that visual mastery that we've come to expect from him, and it really works on several levels. And you're right, this one feels like a standalone film, even though we pretty much know that there's going to be another installment.
Yes.
I mean, how this movie ends up, it's clear there's more coming, but like you said, you still feel like you've seen a complete story.
Yeah. In the way that if you watch each of the Lord of the Rings films, not The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, or if you watch, either Kill Bill film, you know that there's more to the story than what you're seeing, but you feel as if you've seen a completed story, in its own. Whereas I compare the first Dune film to watching those Hobbit movies where, I sat there for 3 hours waiting for anything to happen. And then by the end of the movie, they just opened the dragon's eye. And I thought, I'm going to take a hostage. So, and that is, it wasn't to that degree, but I was a little disappointed in the first Dune. Not at all in this one. I think that there are some new characters, a lot of returning characters. There's
a lot of characters.
But I mean, I felt like they got more of an opportunity to carve out a memorable character.
Mhm.
Florence Pugh, for example, doesn't have much screen time, but she's memorable. And of course, Austin Butler doesn't have a great deal of screen time either, but he has lucked into the most interesting
Yeah,
of the characters.
very memorable.
If
And
you remember the David Lynch, he's the Sting
Yes.
character.
Yeah, there were a
and
lot
it's-
of pictures of the two of them at the preview at the
Yes.
premiere for this. Yeah,
Yes.
interesting. Yeah, he cuts quite a figure, and Florence Pugh, I think they pretty much set her up for a large role next time.
You would think so.
That's the
yes.
idea that you get. But yeah, a large cast filled with just fantastic actors. Of course, Timothée Chalamet at the top is Paul, and then Zendaya is Channy, and then you've got Josh Brolin and Javier Bardem and Rebecca Ferguson. You mentioned Austin Butler and Florence Pugh. Dave Bautista, Christopher Walken, Stellan Skarsgård is back, in his big behemoth form, and Charlotte Rampling and
Oh,
Leah
yeah.
Seydoux, on and on and on.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, they're all able to make an indelible mark and a character, regardless of their screen time, which is a battle in itself
Yeah.
because there are so many characters,
Mhm.
and there is a lot of screen time because this one pushes 3 hours.
It does.
It's about 2:45, I think.
But I really felt it in part one, and I did not feel it in part two. I mean,
Right.
it gets up and moves
It
from
does.
the very, very beginning.
It does.
Plus, there's so many more worms. I felt so the absence of the worms in part one, but
Yeah.
but there's a ton of worms in this one.
Yeah, lots more worm action, and it is thrilling. There's lots of thrills. There's lots of action. There's tension that again, going back to my first point, does feel earned.
Yep.
You care more,
Yeah.
and really follow what's going on here. And it's interesting to me to trace the I guess the inspirations on both sides, because you can see easily because you have to remember, a lot of people don't. I mean, the radio show I was talking to this morning didn't, about that. This novel came before Star Wars,
Mad Max.
before Mad
Mhm,
Max,
mhm.
and you could be watching this movie and think, oh, it copied from Star Wars, it copied from Mad Max. No. Other way around.
Yeah.
And you can definitely see how that, because the vision is brought out so well, you can see how the other filmmakers were influenced by that original story. But then you also, this movie is so chock full of not only biblical, but Shakespearean
Yeah,
references.
yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it mixes them all together.
Yeah.
I mean, you've really got the conversion of Paul. I mean, Paul has different names. He's basically converted into a different name, and he's viewed as either a prophet or a false prophet, depending on who you talk to and the characters in this movie. So that's steeped in biblical lore. And then you've got all this, this scheming, this backstabbing for the throne,
Oh,
the
yeah.
power of the
Very
throne,
Shakespearean.
and the bloodlines. It's such a deep mix of Shakespearean and biblical. But it's a story that this time, as we say again, both of us got invested in.
Yeah, and if you go back to the Lynch version, and the climax of the Lynch film, he had sort of conveniently left out a lot of the socio-political context of the novels, and I credit Villeneuve for not leaving that out. I mean, I don't think that he beat you about the head with it, but I mean, the end of the film, it's fascinating to me in terms of that false prophet business and what you're saying. And of course, also the idea of, I mean, there's just a lot more, I think, political context in this film than maybe people are expecting. And I hope that they don't miss it.
I hope they don't too, but you're right. But we also don't want it beat about the face, like you just talked about, how being so heavy-handed. That doesn't work either.
No.
But I hope so, because any type of, I think sometimes even after all these years, you still get people complaining about certain movies getting political, and they go, oh, look at movies like back in the day, like Star Wars. Are you kidding me?
That's right. They're stormtroopers, for God's sakes. They're called the stormtroopers.
All sorts of political commentary in
Yeah.
all the best science fiction, all the type of genre films are steeped-
science
are
fiction in
steeped-
particular.
Yeah, exactly.
Science fiction in particular.
So it's definitely here, but the character building, the world building, yes, the worms, we finally get to see that, and the not only them, they save a really good shot of the maw, I guess, until later. But early on, you get that worm riding. That's one of the tests that Paul has to face. That's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Once they get that, they can use that to their advantage in battles and such.
But there's a lot of really, really solid action, and as you said, I mean, the cinematography, as you would expect from the guy who did the last Blade Runner movie. I mean, it looks just stunning. But the drama is absolutely there. It's very. I thought that Javier Bardem had so much more of an opportunity to really show a fascinating character this time. Josh Brolin is funny, and his
there is
fairly
a little
limited
bit of humor.
Yeah,
There's
there is
a little bit of humor in it too.
And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, just a really big step up storytelling wise. You're gonna see the type of visuals and cinematography and shot making that we've come to expect, not only from Villeneuve, but his vision of Dune. But yeah, the storytelling just much stepped up, I think, and really can get you excited for what comes next. Although I think, as you were telling me, he sort of said, I need a break. The third one may not be coming for a while.
Yeah, well, from what I understand, again, I've not read the books, nor am I ever going to, by the way. But I believe that as the books progress, there is a bit of a gap, an age gap. So they should come back maybe a little older.
Yeah, okay. But in the meantime, this one is solid. Again, I think it'll satisfy the casual fans who just like a good, science fiction adventure, and the real serious fans of the book and want to see it done justice. I think it should satisfy both. And judging by the crowd at the preview screening, we were there.
Make a lot of
it's going to make some. Yeah, I hadn't seen one of those kind of word of mouth early screenings sell out in a while, at least around here. And that one was filled to the back row.
Yeah,
so this one should do quite well, and it's good. It's good that it can bring satisfaction to pretty much any type of the audience that comes in. I would think so. But just be ready, to about 2:45. But it didn't drag for either of us.
No.
And that's good. So better storytelling for Dune Part 2 everywhere right now. Let's go to Netflix next. Half a year into his solo mission on the edge of the solar system, an astronaut concerned with the state of his life back on Earth is helped by an ancient creature he discovers in the bowels of his ship. This is called Spaceman.
6 months in isolation. You start thinking too much.
I'm getting interference.
I did not intend to frighten you, skinny human. Do not be afraid.
I'm losing my mind.
You go where I go, and I go where you go, right, Spaceman?
These are your thoughts. I am simply finding them with you. Everything that begins must end. I'm not allowing that.
You go where I go, and I go where you go.
I just want to come home.
I'm just going to repeat what I said this morning on TV. This is a movie about how a man will go into deep space to avoid therapy.
This is such an interesting and strange movie, but I think in the hours that have passed since we saw it, I've kind of liked it a little better. I've started thinking more about it, and it's not great, but it's effective, I think, in its own weird way. And it's the director is Johan Renck, who a lot of people loved that Chernobyl series.
Yeah.
It's one of those TV shows, and we get a lot of them.
Yeah.
Recommendations. Oh, you should really watch this. I know we should.
Yeah.
I know we should. We don't have time.
No.
But
We did not get a
we
chance to
would have
see it,
liked
which is too
that
bad. I
a lot.
think so, yeah.
He was behind that, and he's the director here. The writers are Jaroslav Kalfor and Colby Day. And basically, yeah, it's, as you said earlier today, Castaway, a little bit of Castaway in space. And Sandler is a Czechoslovakian cosmonaut.
Adam Sandler. I'm not sure we mentioned his name.
Did we not say Adam
don't think
Sandler?
so.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Adam Sandler. Back a serious Adam Sandler, which it's no secret now that he can be very, very good. Anybody that has missed any of his serious dramatic roles, he can be a very good actor, and he's good in this part. And he's playing a Czechoslovakian cosmonaut who's on this solo mission. His pregnant wife, is back home, Carey Mulligan. And he's having some real troubles here as it gets deep into the mission. He's nearing the goal. The goal is, apparently there's this weird purple cloud.
Gaseous
that has
particles.
Yeah, that has
and
been.
you can see them from Earth.
Yeah,
That's how
and
big
it's been
it is.
there about, what, they said 4 years, I
Yeah.
think. And so his mission is to go out there and try to find out what's the deal and collect particles and just, how can they deal with this big cloud. And at the same time, the South Koreans also have a team,
A vessel in the
that
air,
are going there, and of course, the Czech team wants to get there first. So anyway, he's having trouble mentally with his mental state as it gets farther into the mission, and the fact that he hasn't been able to talk to his pregnant wife for quite some time. Any of the messages, the recorded messages. And so he's not doing well, and then all of a sudden he finds this creature is in the ship with him. It looks like a big spider. It's an arachnid type thing.
Yeah.
Very scary looking.
Yeah.
But it's got the soothing voice of Paul Dano.
Yeah. It's an unusual choice because it's like a giant, like 4-foot spider. Like it's such a funny idea to me that's what, because that would scare the shit out of anyone.
Yeah.
And then Paul Dano, which was a good choice because he does have very soothing, and he calls him skinny human.
Yeah.
And he was just drawn by his loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
And is he really there, or is it just like Wilson? It's never entirely clear.
No, it's not.
But he, this sort of ancient being, and the skinny human, they kind of reminisce about everything that's ever gone on in Sandler's life, as he doesn't really want to remember. So again, he's just being forced into therapy. Essentially, is what happens,
because he's got some issues with his father. And what his father did back in the day, and then of course now he has issues with his wife because she is not taking back on Earth. She is not taking the absence well, and so there's a great deal of emotional tumult.
Yes, there is, and I do think, for me, so Sandler's accent is pretty shaky. I'm kind of sorry that I'm just kind of sorry that they decided to go with it, because Carey Mulligan just has a Carey Mulligan accent. But he plays somebody who's clearly Czech, has grown up there. So I suppose, but it's a
little shaky.
It's a little shaky. I think other than that, though, he does a very fine job. I'm not sure what drew Carey Mulligan to this project, because it's a pretty limited role.
Yeah, I agree. But of course she's great as always.
She
always is.
Yeah.
But and then Isabella Rossellini is in it as well. But it becomes pretty much of a two-man show between Adam Sandler and the creature in Paul Dano's voice as it gets closer and closer to this cloud. So, yeah, you definitely got some Castaway vibes, a little bit of Moon vibes.
Yeah.
Of course, on a mission like this, you think of 2001 and going into some sort of unknown entity and going right in it to find out what's inside. But it's a quirky little thing. Don't expect a lot of action. It's just
or any laughs.
It's just a lot of existential therapy, and talking things out and trying to get to a place where you share your feelings and share your life with someone, and that just doesn't mean a home. Just share your existence with someone.
To be honest with you, I think part of my disappointment seems like too strong a word. Honestly, an Adam Sandler drama, that's a pretty high bar at this point.
Yeah.
He starting from Punch Drunk Love, like every time, and he has done a handful, between Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems, and none of them made very much money, but he was always good, and they were always at least worth a look.
And then he did that, I think it was for Netflix, Hustle.
Yeah.
The basketball movie. Very good.
Yeah.
So, you're exactly right.
So it's a funny thing. When there's an Adam Sandler comedy, my expectations are pretty low. But an Adam Sandler drama, I'm like, I'm intrigued. And so, I think it was a nice movie. I enjoyed it, but maybe I was hoping for more.
Yeah, but it's fine. Again, Netflix, it's a perfect Netflix.
Yeah, if you have it,
sort of
for
movie.
sure, have
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah, and that is on Netflix now, called Spaceman. Next up is an Oscar-nominated drama. Oscar-nominated right now for International Feature, a Homeric fairy tale that tells the adventurous journey of two young boys, Sidhu and Musa, who leave Dakar to reach Europe. This is called Io Capitano. Yeah, this is the latest from co-writer and director Matteo Garrone.
Love every single thing he has ever done. Love with all my heart. See anything he makes.
The ones that first come to mind for most people are Dogman and Gomorrah.
Right.
Yeah, and he's been Oscar nominated before, well-deserved, and this one is well-deserved too. Although I will tell you, it can be a tough watch at times.
Yeah.
But it's these two teenagers, they're cousins, and they are in Senegal. And they've been saving their money, and making their plans now for quite some time to go and seek out a better life in Europe. And the people that they do tell warn them against it, so many dangers, and Sidhu's mother just outright forbids it so much that he has to say, "Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm really kidding. I don't mean it." And then they take off in secret. And through, the trip is going to take them through Libya and through the Sahara Desert till they want to reach Italy. That is that's the goal. But as the synopsis says there, you kind of feel like it almost should be Greece. I mean, This is very much of a Greek fairy tale. But the trip, as you might guess, is not kind to them at all. You've got robbers and shakedown artists, and you've got the threat of prison and torture and all these things to interrupt the journey and to make them think maybe should they try to turn back, or are they going to even make this out alive? And it just is one test after another, so that specifically Sidhu will not surrender his moral character or his humanity.
Yeah.
And he becomes this, as in these fairy tales, these Homeric fairy tales, the true and just warrior, worthy of our admiration. And at the same time, it gives you that the subtext, which is not overbearing, but you can't miss it. The fact that you're rooting for this refugee.
Yeah.
And stories are a lot more effective than just statistics, because when you look at the global refugee crisis, the numbers are just too large to really even comprehend.
Yes, they are.
But then when you think that these are the types of stories, and so there's empathy in this story, there's sympathy in this story to make you think about what these people are going through, what they'll sacrifice themselves for to endure with just the hope of having a better life. And they are put through a lot in this journey. Again, not all of it is pretty to watch at all, but it's a very effective drama, and it ends on it gets to a very hopeful place that you might be able to imagine when you think of that type of fairy tale where a person earns our admiration as a person of true character. Even this 16-year-old boy who is given eventually throughout this journey responsibilities he does not want, where he is responsible for other people's lives, women, children, pregnant women. He doesn't want that. But twists of fate and maybe little acts of human kindness along the way keep his journey going. And so he has to do that if he wants to either survive or wants to maybe get to the destination and get back with his cousin, because at one point in the journey, they do get separated. And then that becomes part of his journey as well. Am I satisfied to continue this on my own, or will I not stop until I'm reunited with my cousin? So there's a lot of tests to his character. And it's a really, really effective drama, as long as, again, you know that there's some tough stuff to watch, but totally understand why it's been nominated for Best International Feature, because you say Garon's stuff is always worth seeing.
Yes, it is. As
this one is right now. And it's in select theaters, and maybe, who knows, it gets some hardware. Maybe it'll get a wider release, but it's out there now. Io Capitano, very good. And one more this week before we talk some Oscars. This is on VOD, a crime horror fantasy, the story of a fake exorcist who is commissioned for the case of a girl who is strongly possessed. This one's called Dr. Cheon and the Lost Talisman.
이런 영역 가득한 것들은 태운다고 없어지는 것이 아니다, 이 말이요.
This is a weird one. A lot about it, especially just the description of it. It seems like a very, very common horror trope of, the sort of shyster who takes advantage of people and goes to, handle a possession or something like that, usually to televise it for their podcast, for their whatever. And then, of course, they're exposed as being fakes because they finally come across a real possession. And that is what happens here. But what you find out, a couple of things that make this different is one is that he's been looking for that. That's what his goal has been. He has been trying to find the real thing. And then he's just, rather than just taking people's money, he is a doctor of psychology. And so he's actually sort of implementing strategies so that these people stop thinking that their house is haunted, right? So you've got that. So you don't root against him and his sort of weird, haphazard, ragtag team of exorcists, even though you know that they are kind of bilking people in a certain way out of their money. And then when he does find the actual possessed, it takes on the movie takes on an almost Saturday morning live action sort of kids show feel about it. The action is, I mean, it's still sort of violent. There's definitely horror here, but it picks up a very colorful sort of kung fu kind of unusual tone about it. That's sort of, and then also, so Dr. Cheon becomes almost like a wildly understated kind of Indiana Jones type, and then, but then the rest of his team takes on an almost Scooby-Doo kind of, it's an odd mixture of things, but on the whole, I mean, it's very charming and fun. I enjoyed it.
And this is, the director is Kim Seung-sik. Hopefully I pronounced that right. But yeah, mix of mishmash of styles,
yes.
mishmash of genres, but it can work in a fun way,
right?
Especially on VOD, and that's where it is now, and it's available, called Dr. Cheon and the Lost Talisman. All right, well, a week from Sunday, the Oscars.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
They are here, and just run down some of the big categories because as we were talking, we just got done guesting on, and it should be out by the time it should be out soon. There's a real fun podcast that our friends run. It's called Whiskey Business.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about all sorts of different topics while they drink whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been nice enough to have us on every year for the last several to talk about the Oscars. So we just got done doing that, and that's a lot of fun. Seek it out if you want to check out that podcast. But we were making our picks, and I think we all agreed. One of the things we were talking about as far as, because they asked us about this year in movies as opposed to last year. And I think this year, you look at all the categories, they're just so top heavy with talent. All the nominees are so deserving.
Yeah.
And in some cases, some people that didn't get nominated are very well deserving as well. There's just so much top heavy stuff. But run through some of the big categories. We think both of these supporting actor categories are pretty well locked.
Yeah, it does seem like that. I mean, in particular, Divine Joy Randolph, we think that she's the lockiest of all the locks to win.
The lockiest.
For supporting actress. And then it does seem pretty clear at this point that Robert Downey Jr. is going to win supporting actor.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. They both won the SAG the other night, so there's another indication that it probably will go that way. As far as best actor and actress, we have a little bit of a break on our picks. For actor, you're still going with Cillian Murphy.
Yes, I am. He would get my vote, but I also think he's going to win.
He would get my vote as well, although I'm still sticking with, even though Cillian Murphy did win the SAG the other night, something in my gut is telling me Paul Giamatti is going to win.
Now, I think that that's a tighter race than any of the others. I do think so, and it would not make me sad for Paul Giamatti to win. He's great. First of all, he's great in The Holdovers. He's magnificent. But also, as we have talked about a number of times now coming up to this, he should have 2 or 3 Oscars by now.
It's amazing.
He's one of the absolute greatest actors of his generation. He can do anything. I'll see anything he's in. Also, just by the way, he has a podcast called Chinwag, and he and his friend talk about Bigfoot and other cryptids, which is bizarre, but check it out. Anyway,
why not?
It's a delightful podcast, but I love him, and it would not make me sad, although I think it's going to be Cillian Murphy, and I hope it is Cillian Murphy.
I just feel like right now there's just a lot of love for the movie, The Holdovers, and for Giamatti's performance, and we already said that we think Divine Joy Randolph is going to win, so something, I don't know. You're probably right, but I'm just going with my gut. I'm just going to say that Giamatti's going to win. As far as Best Actress goes, I think we both got a big indication the other night at the SAGs, because we think it's a two-woman race between Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone. But Lily won the SAG, and I think now I think both of us are going with Lily Gladstone, who was tremendous. They both were tremendous.
They both were tremendous. Honestly, I mean, Lily Gladstone would have my vote, as I believe she would have yours. And I have for a while thought she was probably going to be the winner. But another thing that you and I have talked about that is that those 2 races, Gladstone and Stone, and also Murphy and Giamatti. It's these 4 of the most amazing performances ever, two of them, Gladstone and Cillian Murphy, very internal.
Very.
Like so much of the performance is just watching what's going on in their eyes and on their faces, whereas Giamatti, and in particular Emma Stone, very showy in the best way. I don't want that to sound derogatory in any way. They're glorious performances.
They needed to be showy.
They did need to be showy. So if that's an easier thing to catch someone's attention, and so it wouldn't be a huge surprise to me if voters were like, "Oh my God, look how great that is," and this person isn't even doing anything.
Yeah.
But I hope to have enough faith in the Oscar voters that they recognize not just how great the performance is, but how hard it would be to carry a whole film
and
in such an internal way. And they both do.
And you never know how the voters vote the way they do, but I think one thing that could come into play is the fact that if it's down to a literal, a virtual tie, maybe the fact that Emma Stone just won a few years ago might be, there could be any number of reasons why somebody votes the way they do, because they're both so good.
Oh, yeah.
But I agree. I think Lily's going to win, and she probably would get my vote as well
She
if
would
we were
get
voting.
mine. Although I got to say again, Emma Stone was like a miracle.
And just incredible. So I think director, we both think Christopher Nolan is going to win. I wouldn't say it's a lock, but I think he's the favorite. For sure.
And that's given the options. That's who I would vote for. I am. By the way, you can't tell, but I am wearing my "I am Knuff" sweatshirt right now because I would give it to Greta Gerwig all day. But she's not in there, and I won't be sad to see him win because Nolan. We were talking about this too. He gets a lot of hate.
He does,
and of course he doesn't have one yet, and he ought to. And I hope that this is the one that finally gets him an Oscar.
It's a tremendous directorial
Unbelievable.
effort. Really is. And in turn, I think we both expect Oppenheimer to win Best Picture.
Yes,
out of the 10, and there are strong, even at 10, and I'm glad they got 10 because there are 10 solid choices here for Best Picture. But I think it seems to have the momentum. It's certainly worthy.
Yeah.
It was one of our, it was our number 3 maybe?
Yes, it was.
Of the year.
I think we have Poor
Things.
Things.
Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon,
But when you get to the top like that, it's just splitting hairs.
Well, exactly. You're exactly right. And when we were deciding, it was like, it's...
There's such great films. But that's the way we expect it to go. We'll see. That's going to be on Sunday night, the 10th, for the Academy Awards. Man, it seems like it's almost here. It seems like it is time, but at the same time, it seems like it kind of creeped up on us. So I don't know. Time means nothing. Time is a construct.
Time is a construct.
But I do know this. It's time, after a couple of false starts, to get back to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Finally back in the lobby with the Schlocketeer Daniel Baldwin for all the latest news. It's been a couple of weeks, so what's going on?
Well, we've got quite a few new releases on the horizon, kind of a mixture of genres. April 12th, we'll see the release of Dark Sky Films' werewolf movie Blackout, which is the latest film from Larry Fessenden. And then the same day, we'll also bring forth the Nicolas Cage creature feature Arcadian. It'll get a theatrical release on April 12th and then hit Shudder later in the year. And then keeping it weird and monstery, also on April 12th, will be the Bleecker Street limited theatrical release of the Sundance Fave surreal comedy Sasquatch Sunset, which stars Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough as a member of a Sasquatch family.
That's right.
And
okay.
Ari Aster produced it, and it'll supposedly get a wider release on April 19th.
So it's the same directors, though, who did Damsel and... Trying to think of it.
Kumiko, yeah.
Yeah, Kumiko, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
And then moving into May, continuing with 2023's theme of unconventional product biopics, Netflix has set a May 3rd premiere for Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story.
You're there, George.
I am so there.
And then that same day, Neon has set a theatrical release for their horror film Cuckoo, which stars Hunter Schafer, Dan Stevens, and Jessica Henwick, and it hails from Loose director Tillman Singer, so that might be one to look out for.
Dan Stevens got a couple of horror movies coming out this year.
Yeah, he does. He's kind of all over the place because he's in the new Godzilla movie and the
Abigail?
Dracula's Daughter movie. Yeah, Abigail. And then also on May 3rd will be the theatrical release, courtesy of A24, of Jane Schoenbrun's latest film, I Saw the TV Glow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've been hearing about that, yeah.
Looking forward to that one.
Very much.
And Netflix set a May 17th premiere for their animated musical comedy Thelma the Unicorn, which is the latest film from Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre director Jared Hess.
Who has an Oscar-nominated short film among the animated shorts this year.
Then back to the musical biopics. There's an Amy Winehouse film called Back to Black, hitting theaters on May 17th, courtesy of Universal. And then Lionsgate has set their remake of The Crow for a June 7th theatrical release. Similarly, Sony has moved up the release of Bad Boys 4 by 1 week to June 7th, so I'm kind of wondering if The Crow ends up moving. We'll see how that goes. One movie that was set for that date did move. Ishana Shyamalan's directorial debut, The Watchers, has moved back a week to June 14th to get out of their way.
For our anniversary, George, we can go see that.
Yes, perfect.
There you go. And then moving on from release dates, a little bit of industry news and some project announcements. First up, the Hollywood Labor Union's contract with the studios is up for renewal this year. Preliminary negotiations will kick off this coming week, and all parties involved have until July 31st to cut a deal. Hopefully they do, or else we could end up spending another summer and fall watching strikes play out.
Oh, Lord.
Yep. So fingers crossed that they actually work this one out after last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then project announcements. This was announced probably about a week and a half ago, but Sam Mendes is going to direct 4 films about the Beatles, each Beatle getting their own movie with overlapping sequences in each film told from their different perspectives, and all 4 films will see release in 2027. So that's massively ambitious and risky, kind of. I mean, it's the Beatles, but 4 movies is too much.
And hopefully they've got the casting already down, because just go back and watch that scene from Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, and you've got the Beatles cast.
You know what? If they just want to use all those guys again, I'm fine with
use
it.
them.
Watch that.
Imagine. Oh, yeah.
If you only imagine.
And then lastly, more on our front, I've got a double dose of Coen Brothers news for you. First up, Ethan Coen will shoot the second movie in his LGBTQ-themed exploitation trilogy this spring. It's titled Honey, Don't, and it's a PI mystery that will star Margaret Qualley, Aubrey Plaza, and Chris Evans.
Yeah, that's the kind of the part 2 after Drive-Away Dolls, right?
Mm-hmm. And there will be a part 3 eventually, but not immediately, because at the tail end of this year, he and his brother Joe are reuniting to make a horror movie together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, glad to have you back. I know it wasn't your fault. It was mine here in the new equipment in the studio, but glad we got it done, and you can always catch up with Daniel on the socials at the Schlocketeer. Thank you.
Happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Well, let us know what you think. Your own Oscar picks or thoughts on Dune Part 2 or Spaceman or any of the flicks this week. Looking ahead to next week, we get a few more now.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's kind of stayed out of the way of Dune Part 2 this week. But next week, we get the big animated Kung Fu Panda 4.
Also Imaginary.
Also Problemista.
American Dreamer. Very much looking forward to that one.
One called Totem.
And then Warrior Princess.
Okay, that's all next week. But a lot going on this week. So, yeah, keep the conversation going. It's always easy to get us now. We're glad to be back. Hopefully ironed out these technical problems from here on in. But you can always get us easily on Twitter. It's at MaddWolf, MaddWolf. Also on Facebook and Instagram. It is MaddWolf Columbus. Oh, and Threads. And Threads as well. And the main website with all of our written reviews and our other horror movie only podcast called Fright Club. That's always there, available at maddwolf.com. So keep in touch. Enjoy the movies. Hope your equipment is working well. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Screening Room Podcast.
See ya.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Bye.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.